Welcome into our post-election edition of This Week in Missouri Politics. No time for a featured guest. Full panel today. One of my best friends in politics, Pat Thomas. She probably doesn't want to have to own that. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on again, Scott.
Sharon Jones, thank you so much for making the time.
Always an honor.
First time on the show, Henry Elster. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks. Big fan of the show.
St. Louis, Chesterfield, lawyer extraordinaire, right?
Yes. Wildwood.
Wildwood. Yeah, there's a difference only to you people. Ed, John Ratliff, thank you so much for making the time. Obviously, the news of the week, Mike Kehoe wins what was a grueling primary for governor. The guy just earned it, right?
Yeah, I think you can look at Mike and Claudia. They spent the last 4 years going around the state, being in every small community, every big town, meeting with everyone. They rolled out endorsements 3 years ago almost. And I think a lot of those endorsements we saw, they showed up, those grassroots organizations, whether it's the farmers and ranchers, police, law enforcement, laborers, businesses, all these different groups showed up for Kehoe, and that's why I think he was able to win on election night. I think it's going to be huge for Missouri. Kehoe's the kind of governor that's going to make a huge difference for our state, and I'm really, really excited for him to be our governor.
You know, Pat, I really think a lot of the messaging, if you just really talk to a Republican primary voter, Eigel had a message some folks wanted to hear. Mike Kehoe just was the man they wanted to vote for.
I think that Bill and his team are good at firing people up. They've been slow to deliver any kind of metrics for anybody to go out and say they've actually accomplished something.
I'm not sure Republicans care about delivery. They care about anger. But they respected Mike Kehoe. I think that the personal gravitas of the man carried the day.
I agree, and I think with what Jonathan said about people, they knew him. They were going to vote for him, and that history with the Kehoes kept them from believing the ads.
Now, let's also say Mike Kehoe did spend a little bit of coin this summer on this race.
He did spend quite a bit more.
Comparatively to that, but I think he spent it in a wise way. I think he spent it in a way that made sense. His branding that we would see, at least in St. Louis and all, it's stand with Mike, him on a horse.
I thought all the other visuals were whatever. He was on a horse. He acted like he knew what he was doing. But he looked like John Dutton.
Yes.
Which was the best visual. It was so funny. The first video that came out, his announcement video, there was an internal discussion in that campaign. Should they include the clip of him on that horse? I thought it was the best part of the announcement video, and I thought it was no coincidence, and some numbers must have backed this up. It was the last visual on his last closing ad.
Yes. That was a lingering image that a lot of people clung to and found attractive.
I mean, he actually can ride a horse like he's ridden one before. Most Republicans can't.
Yeah.
I do think, though, you can't discount the fact that Bill Eigel's message, while I think Pat's got a point. It'd be hard to accomplish some of these things and whatever. A lot of folks liked it. It's like, when you scratch a dog's belly, you ain't doing internal organ surgery, but boy, he likes it.
It's true. And I think that if this had been heads up with either Ashcroft and Kehoe or Eigel and Kehoe, we would have seen a different result. I think that there is a strong, angry, as you said, portion of the Republican primary electorate.
Who would have been angry at Bill by Valentine's Day, by the way, if he would have
Yes. Maybe, maybe not. Well, we will never know.
They're always angry.
They are always angry. But I think that, to your point, familiarity and comfort, and honestly, I think there is a desire to have adults in charge. And that's what Kehoe represented.
Interesting. Pat, when you go, it's so funny to me. The folks that scream and yell and all the rhetoric and all the Facebook posts and all this. The fact is, Mike Kehoe actually goes in the room quietly, and the strength of his character brought people over on school choice, on tax cuts. I mean, that school choice bill they passed was Mike Kehoe in and out of offices over and over. I don't think Sherry Gallick votes for that bill, and they needed every single one without Mike Kehoe. I don't think Jamie Berger, Curtis Gregory voted for that bill without Mike Kehoe. He didn't do it screaming and whining on Facebook. He did it with his personal integrity.
And those people were all successful on election night, by the way.
With the same school people they voted for turning on them.
Right.
Except for Kehoe. I do think, Sharon, the truth is, if you're a Democrat in this state, you probably wanted Eigel to win, because while the rhetoric would have annoyed you, the results never come. With Kehoe, the results tend to come.
Maybe, maybe not. I think that Kehoe's results are not going to be as distasteful to most Democrats in this
But
state.
they're actually attainable. The other goals might be more distasteful, but they're never going to happen. Mike Kehoe will actually do things that happen.
That executive order pin is terrifying for Democrats in this state in the hands of Eigel.
That executive order, Pitt. I mean, people talk about not liking tyranny. What is an executive order if not for just a one-person rule?
Right, absolutely on that. So I, to your point earlier, or the points that were made earlier, I think Eigel appealed to a certain broad part of the primary voters in terms of his messaging. I mean, we would see the messages shift in St. Louis County more. I mean, his yard sign just said deport illegals, no pushing rock tax, pro-Trump. In contrast to that, you would just see Kehoe and Ashcroft. That would get people fired up.
I mean,
Sure.
exactly what it was right
It's a terrific campaign.
Yeah, no.
It was strong.
John, I'm not sure when you look at the final numbers, if Jay Ashcroft doesn't run, I'm not sure Bill Eigel might not have had a chance to win it. I'm not sure the opposite's true. I think Bill Eigel's message, well, again, I agree. It's not something that probably was ever going to happen. However, no one cared. Again, when you're scratching that dog's belly, even if he's sick, you ain't doing surgery on him. Boy, that leg shakes. I mean, what he said connected with folks.
Yeah, as I've said, I think Sophie ran an amazing campaign. They worked very, very hard. They had, I think, while they didn't elect Eigel, and we're going to get to it in a second, I think they elected the Secretary of State's office. And so I think that's very much a tribute to their efforts and the kind of grassroots that they were able to turn out. I'll say that it's easy to Sunday morning or Monday morning quarterback to look at these results and say, okay, well, I don't think that Kehoe could have been able to beat Ashcroft. Eigel. The race is a lot different right there. So
Sure.
Messaging, how the strategy that's employed by the Kehoe campaign would look a whole lot different. I think a heads-up race with Ashcroft, I don't know. I mean, there were some great guys on that campaign that helped Jay, but overall, they didn't really run an operation, anything even remotely close to the Kehoe or the Eigel campaign, and I just don't know if he could have motivated them. And then in the reverse, I don't know if the resources would have inevitably ended up being there for an Eigel. And so, it's, again, you kind of look at it, what would have ended up happening. He was very successful, Eigel was, with the resources that he had, but he needed Jay as much to be part of that to kind of pull away, because I don't think any Eigel voter would have ever been a Kehoe voter. But I do think there were some Jay voters would have definitely went over to Mike.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's look at this lieutenant governor's race, Pat. In your office, you did see Lincoln Huff run with a ton of Missouri support. Holly Rader, I think, the difference in that race, I think Holly picked Lincoln Huff's pocket a great deal. And then David Washer comes in, St. Louis attorney, wins by, less than 1%. In the day, what was the key factor? Where were those 7,000 votes? Was it Trump? Was it the ability for Wassinger to self-fund? What was the difference?
So I think it's twofold. I think the last-minute endorsement by Trump and however that was accomplished helped with 1% of the voter. I do also think, though, that the way Missouri's election laws are set up, it's in the weeds, but a self-funded candidate can buy at a much more aggressive media rate, and we saw Wassinger do that in the St. Louis market, which is where flipping 4,000 votes would have been ideal.
I mean, John, it is. Break it down for folks. If you, let's say hypothetically, you're a very wealthy trial lawyer, and you have lots and lots of money to give out to spend on your campaign. If you put it in your candidate fund, as opposed to Lincoln Huff, who has to go raise it from a Farm Bureau member, you could spend it much more efficiently because the laws let you buy cheaper rates, right?
Yeah, and so funny how you said a trial attorney wasn't just a regular working class attorney. He had to be a trial attorney.
Okay, David Wasser's got a bar card. I don't know, however you want to say it.
But either way, yeah. So as it 100% is that we saw that in a bunch of races actually, that those who have the ability to self-fund because of the way the TV stations, actually the biggest winner of this election season was the broadcast stations, who made millions and millions and millions of dollars. But overall, the way the law is set up now,
to Tom Tipton,
if you're a self-funder, you can in essence go in and buy a race at half the price of what the grassroots candidates have to go out and work, either from individual donors and organizations and grassroots business groups. You have to go out and raise that $2,800 at a time, whereas they can just sign a check, and then that $2,800 that you raised is maybe only, or even more, might be worth half that when a candidate, right? Because they can just go in and buy a TV ad. We were looking at the St. Louis market, and in the Joplin market, you might pay on the issue site 7 times the rate that what the candidate site could get, and that in doing that makes it so much harder. I think it's because of the Cleaner Missouri and saying you have to have these packs now. There's a lot of waste that goes into that, and one of the biggest challenges that come from that is now self-funders have such a huge advantage over the grassroots and able to buy a seat. And I think we saw that in this race. I think we saw it in some other races, and maybe that's something that we'll look to try to change in the future.
Sharon Jones, the Republican Party needs converts. They converted the Democrat David Wassinger, and now he's the lieutenant governor.
I am a lobbyist, and therefore I have no political affiliation.
So you're a potential convert. I'm not sure. Tell folks about it. From an outside looking at
Yeah.
perspective, Wassinger comes out, barnstorms in,
Yeah.
buys a bunch of ads. It truly was, can you buy the office? I think you can't.
I think that's very true. And I think that the other thing that race in particular shows is that there's going to be some interest in looking at, do we change the way we do elections? If we've got people who can come in and with 20 to 30% of the vote hold a statewide office, and that's 20 to 30% of a primary vote, which is for the bargain price of $2.5 million, but not even that. But like, we're not talking about a majority of people wanted David Wassinger to be our lieutenant governor. We're not talking about a majority of Republicans wanted David Wassinger to be our lieutenant governor. Like, the problem that I see is that we've got 8 to 10 people in these races. And so having that money is what allows you to buy that seat. It's a combination of the two factors. If it were a three-way race with Wassinger, Huff, and Thompson Raider, that $2.5 million would have gotten him at second place.
Sharon, I mean, I think there is a scrappiness and you sort of get excited about somebody that did take on millions and millions of dollars, and she had to earn it.
Yeah.
I mean, I interviewed her speaking to the Pettis County Democrats. Pettis County, which there was like 150 people there, which I thought was awesome. But I mean, she had to work hard. It's nice to root for an underdog and see one succeed.
Truly, and I think that's her strategy the whole time, was to actually get out there and talk to those high propensity Democratic primary voters. She wasn't trying to, spread mail all across the state. I think we got 8 different pieces at our house from Hamra. She wasn't doing that. She was actually going and talking to the people that she knew were going to show up in a low turnout election.
You worked with Crystal as she's in the Senate district of Senator Huff's. I thought there was an element of rooting for her against the odds. And the next time the Democrats say there's no election for her, I'd be like, no, there is. And you did it.
Right. I think a lot of people just wanted to see Crystal also be successful, because I think we'd like to see women approach these offices and be considered serious candidates and do better in the future.
Mm-hmm. We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel for segment 2 of our post-election edition of This Week in Missouri Politics after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople, while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
You know, Missouri farmers have been doing what's best for their land for generations. After all, no one knows what it takes to feed and fuel a growing global population better than they do. So why are trial lawyers threatening Missouri farmers' best defense against weeds? Our farmers don't need to be controlled. They need to be supported. Keep glyphosate in our state. Show your support at TakeControlMissouri.com. Paid for by Modern Ag Alliance and support of Missouri farmers.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics post-election edition. So much to talk about. Pat Thomas, I really think when you look at the stellar, obviously Kehoe, great night. There were some upsets. Andrew Bailey had $15 million sent from Washington and New York City to take him out. And the Missouri War Hero, he beat Manhattan.
Well, it was an amazing night. That team ran a campaign from day one that was, this is our guy, this is exactly who he is, and this is what you're going to get. And they didn't deviate from it. You got hometown hero, smart attorney, family man, and frankly, the guy from D.C. couldn't keep up.
I mean, it did break down to the Montgomery County Missouri War Hero versus the Manhattan attorney. And I guess there are a third of Missourians somewhere that voted for Manhattan over Missouri.
Yeah, that was surprising, and this was the race I was following the most. Maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a lawyer myself, but I think this is the most important office to have with the current political makeup between the state and federal government, with how important the courts are right now. But, putting aside the money, in-person presentation, I think Andrew Bailey has the best in-person presentation and story of anyone. I've seen Trump speak at Mar-a-Lago. I went to Senator Vance's event recently. I've been a long supporter of Senator Schmidt, but Andrew Bailey had the best presentation. He ran the best campaign, and really kind of followed the blueprint that we saw from now Senator Schmidt and Senator Hawley.
It's true. He did. I mean, he took up the mantle from Hawley to Schmidt. You sue everybody.
Sure.
Even of the day, though, I mean, Will Sharp's an impressive guy, smart dude, but had, good Lord, tons and tons and tons of money. But at the end of the day, I just think they didn't give a reason to fire the Missouri war hero.
Yeah, I think, came on the show a while back, and I mentioned this race is going to come down, does Missouri win or does D.C. win? And I think we saw here that Missouri won, and they won by a lot, actually. That race was the first one you called, I think, of the night. It was
if Andrew moved to New York and ran for Attorney General, what would happen?
It probably would go as well. And I think, to Pat's point, he ran the campaign from the beginning to end about who he was and why he's best for that office. And in addition to kind of following the blueprint to some degree of Hawley and Schmidt, I think he actually went and did the job of being the Attorney General and prosecuting the case and actually doing things. And so I think that was important. I think he did a great job at that. And I think that's one of the reasons they voted for him.
Sharon Jones, at the end of the day, it was almost like a fly annoying Andrew Bailey. 2/3 to 1/3. Look, I think Will Sharp's a brilliant guy. But at the end of the day, Missouri beat Manhattan because they run the race in Missouri.
Truly. And, I tend to be over idealistic when it comes to the court system and the office of the Attorney General. I'm not a big fan of this new trend, but it clearly wins elections where you use the office to do political work the entire time. I don't like it, but it's a fact that we're living with.
Do you think now that the election's over, you'll see more of the substantive part?
No.
You saw it with Schmidt. Schmidt's first 2 years, it was, I think, lawyers I know and respect gave him a pretty good review of how he obviously inherited an office that wasn't in great shape. But the first 2 years of Schmidt's time were I think, lawyers would tell you, a pretty impressive office that accomplished a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, when he filed for Senate, it became clown time.
Sure.
But now clown time's over. Do you think Bailey has the ability to come in and actually run the office in a more professional way, not a political way?
Yeah, I think the key word there is ability, and no, I don't. I think that he is a politician first and an attorney second. And what we've seen out of that office is not good lawyering. Like, take aside politics and how I feel about the things that he's deciding to file. He's missing deadlines. His filings are sloppy. He's refusing to show up when ordered by the court. He's ignoring court orders. Like, these sorts of things are basic lawyering. Set aside the political stuff. And I think that if he were smart, he would put some people in place as his deputies who know how to run a law office and aren't just worried about the next election.
Pat, I think it will be. It is totally. I don't think it's honestly possible to judge a guy when he is appointed to the office, not elected. Then he's immediately running for re-election, and then you have these Washington folks who like to pick our people for us, come in with literally. I mean, I don't think anybody predicted 15, 16 million. I was thinking more 8 to 10 million, which is a lot, or 12. I do think you got to give the guy a few months in the job when he doesn't have just all the pressure, the boot right on his throat, to judge how he's going to be the next 8 years.
I would agree with that, and I think you'll see him surround himself for the next 4 years by people that are there to help run things for the state of Missouri. But back to one of the comments earlier, I think what you saw was a huge difference in media type. Will Sharp's a smart guy.
Very smart guy.
Washington, D.C. smart. Nobody believed in Ed with him holding a gun. Totally.
Anybody
totally
the
off
herbicide, the pesticide,
Right. Like, it wasn't believable. Kind of like the ads for Huff. Those were believable. Those were things he'd accomplished, things he'd done. The gun ad just didn't come off as...
Talk about Will Sharp, though. There's an old Garth Brooks song about unanswered prayers. Yeah. I'm not sure looking forward. I mean, I do believe Will Sharp is one of the most brilliant people I know.
Yep.
I don't know. I think maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, one day Andrew Bailey will be out the Cedar County Fair in the hot sun, and Will Sharp could be a federal judge. And I'm not sure he's not playing that Garth Brooks song in his head.
So that he more has the disposition and demeanor, and I've communicated with him, spoken over the phone, kind of like a judge or a law professor, extremely intelligent. And I mean, just to give an example, I mean, one of my first conversations with him had to do with really complicated areas of corporate law. Andrew's not going to talk about those types of things, at least not immediately on that. So he absolutely is going to have a future in the legal industry on that. It just, I don't know if he's as good of a politician as Andrew's not.
Well, I think that part was decided
Yes.
on Tuesday. Pat, the state treasurer's race, interesting race. Vivek Malik, one of the genuinely nicest people I've met in politics. He has just a genuinely positive karma that flows from him. I do think it was interesting. There had to be some interesting discussions in that campaign. From day one, every mailer had his face on it, every billboard, every ad. And frankly, there were folks in the Republican Party that thought, well, you can elect an Indian American. He took on the issue of immigration. In a cycle where all that was talked about was immigration, Vivek Malik is an immigrant, but he turned it on its head and said, I'm a legal immigrant. And at the end, all of the dirty, politics, Cody went hard against him at the very end. I wonder what happened if they did that 3 weeks earlier. Vivek Malik, though, took everything head on and won in a landslide.
He did, and he had a campaign plan, and he had good advisors, and they knew what the perception was going to be. And instead of arguing it or whatever, they kind of laid into it, and they just explained why it was a benefit and not a negative.
I mean, the guy is a legit. It's nice to see I think something good happen for a good guy.
Yes.
And at the end, it got dirty, it got dark, and he still swatted it all away and won very impressive.
Very comfortably. It seemed like a week or two out that would have been close, and the results kind of bore that out. And he did jump right head on into it. The first ads I saw in the treasurer race were billboards off of 170 by me in St. Louis, and it just had him with a picture of Trump and the border, and most of his TV ads were to that. It was a good campaign, and he ran it really well.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a massive financial advantage. That is, we just talked about how a massive financial advantage did work, so it doesn't guarantee you're going to win, or we'd be talking about Sharp as our new attorney general. But Malik fended off a challenge. Lori Rook took him from the right. Andrew Canning was out knocking doors, had a good presence in St. Louis. Cody Smith, good guy, well thought of in Southwest Missouri. Went dirty at the end, but at the end of the day, was it just too late?
What I think is, first off, I think Koenig actually deserves, from that race, is actually the biggest winner because he did the most impressive thing. I mean, no matter where I was in the state, you actually saw a bunch of his signs, and I know crews are putting out signs on election night. Almost every location, no matter where you were in the state, they had Koenig yard signs out for polling locations. So that's an impressive from a grassroots. I think he only raised $120,000 maybe. And I think if you didn't have Cody in that race, Lori didn't run, if the Freedom Caucus, who Andrew had always been a part of,
and it always stuck it to him,
hadn't bailed on him, you could have very well seen a similar thing that you saw in the Hoskins race. That coalition that I was given, to be honest, was surprised they were able to put together to actually turn out the way it did. But if they could have done that, and Koenig maybe had some of the resources that Cody had gotten, I think this race could have looked a lot different. Again, as you out on the show the day before the election, right? Or the day of, that Vivek is a really nice guy. Like, no one who's met him doesn't think he's a nice guy. I think there's a lot more out there to be seen as that race changes. He had a huge financial advantage, and a financial advantage in a race in which you are the only one with the resources and everyone else doesn't, then that advantage comes true. When you're in a race with Scharf and Bailey, who both have a lot of money, well, then that you don't have that.
It's almost like you had Rex Singfield, Ketchmark, and Holland holding off all of Wall Street. I will say, Sharon, I personally thought it was going to be harder for Vivek Malik to get elected in this environment. And as immigration came to the fore, I thought that wasn't an advantage for him. But honestly, kudos to folks for weighing these candidates out. And clearly, at the end of the day, his race wasn't really a factor.
Yeah, I think that's true. And honestly, anyone who's met the guy, you've said it, John said it, Pat said it, he is the most genuine, kind, like, he just emanates love and good feeling. He is good to be around.
You got to get the old boy some better food.
Truly. I mean, look, he's down in the cafeteria every day eating with the state workers there in the building. Like, he's a regular guy, and I think he went across the state and showed that to people, and they believed him.
All right, let's talk about the Secretary of State's race. The hardest race to pick, factors from all over the spectrum. It did, to me, at the end of the day, it looked like in a race where 20% would have won it, Bill Eigel hit 30%, and he was able to take his supporters, a good chunk of them, activate those folks that Jim Lemke has created all over the state, the folks that Eigel had really fired up and turned on to be with Denny.
Yeah, and you saw that. I mean, it was very, very impressive. I think two things. One, Denny and Michelle went everywhere. Like there was literally, and I didn't go to a ton of events, but every event that I went to, they were almost always there, right?
And it was to the second most was Shane. They finished 1 and 2.
Yep, I think both of them, both campaigns, neither of which had a ton of resources, were able to put together. They kind of ignited their own grassroots there, and I think that was a really big part of it. But you don't have enough resources in those races in any of those candidates to kind of penetrate on media. And I think in the last 2 weeks of the campaign, when all that money, out-of-state money came in to kind of mess with the governor's race, I think that had a big impact on that because any of the candidates in those kind of down ballot races didn't have enough resources. They were all $1 million or less. And I think Hoskins and the Eigel Army, those two, which are most closely aligned, won that race.
Are we going to see, Pat, the Kirkpatrick Blue Book was green. Are we going to see a red Blue Book because of the jacket?
Well, I don't know, but the red jacket worked.
All right.
I mean, people knew it. They recognized it.
Yes.
They were active on social media. I mean, I think he can actually go in and run an effective office.
I do too. When the minute left, who won the week?
Mike Keogh definitely won the week. And the people of Missouri, because of that, won the week. Okay.
Andrew Bailey absolutely won the week. In-state versus out-state.
Well,
most important office.
Yeah. My God. Who won the week?
I'm going to say all of our election workers and the clerks who ran an election, this is a terrible environment to be doing that in, and they did an amazing job.
Won the week.
Missouri citizens and their belief in law enforcement over in Kansas City.
Yeah. I'm going to say Governor Mike Parson. He's picked statewide officials more than any governor in the history of this state. He's 7-0. 7-0 is not bad. We're going to close the show out, though, with a special message of the man that makes all this work, the man that made election night in Missouri work, Kelton Turner.
Hello, and welcome to this Sunday's last segment of This Week in Missouri Politics. You might notice that I'm not Scott Faughn. I'm actually Kelton Turner, and I'm usually behind the camera working every week to bring this show to your screen. But I asked Scott if I could come on camera this week so I could tell you who I thought won the week. I think my wonderful wife, Madison, won the week. When this airs, tomorrow will be her birthday, and she won't be very happy that I'm doing this, but I'm doing it anyway. I wanted to wish her a happy birthday and thank her for all the wonderful love and support that she's given me as I navigate the world of Missouri politics. Navigating this world is not easy, and supporting someone who does this is not easy either. But she does it every day, and I'm very grateful for that. And for that reason, I think she won the week. Happy birthday, darling. We'll see you next week for This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.